Okay, let's unpack this for a second. If someone told you they were traveling, roughly 1,300 kilometers today, say, like the distance from New York City down to Chicago or London to Rome, you would immediately picture the entire, the stressful routine of modern air travel.
Oh, absolutely. The whole ordeal.
Right. You'd mentally prepare for those TSA lines, the boarding groups, sitting on the runway, and the inevitable turbulence. But what if you could cover that exact same distance purely on the ground in just 4.5 hours with the vehicle leaving, like, every 10 minutes?
It's wild to even think about, right? It honestly shatters our entire geographical rulebook. We're just so conditioned to believe that moving across a continent requires leaving the surface of the Earth.
Yeah, I have to fly.
Exactly. Or, if you stay on the ground, you expect it to take days. But what we are looking at today completely collapses that assumption.
It really does.
We are diving into a machine that is so massive, it stretches for 50,000 kilometers, yet it operates with such rigid precision that passengers regularly balance coins on the windowsills just to prove how smooth it is.
Which is just nuts.
Yeah.
We are, of course, talking about the world's largest high-speed rail network, the system in China. And for today's deep dive, rather than just tossing a bunch of logistical facts at you, we want to figure out how this system actually functions.
Right, the day-to-day reality of it.
Yeah, because our source material today is this incredibly detailed guide and first-hand travelogue about taking a Chinese bullet train. And our mission here is to extract the logistics, the scale, and the cultural nuances. Because it's one thing to build a fast train. It's entirely another to turn a country roughly the size of the United States into what essentially functions as a single, interconnected, subway system.
That really is the core mystery here. It's that tension between massive, unimaginably large-scale engineering and the daily practical reality of human beings just trying to, get to work or go on vacation.
Yeah.
And to understand how they pull this off, we really have to grasp the sheer physical footprint first. You mentioned the 50,000 kilometers of track.
Right.
If you were to lay that out in a straight line, it would wrap entirely around the Earth at the equator, and you would still have enough track left over to connect London to Tokyo.
Wait, really? Wrap around the entire Earth?
The entire Earth.
Yeah.
With track to spare.
That is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And this isn't just track cutting through empty deserts for the sake of setting some kind of record either.
Yeah.
The data shows this network connects 97% of Chinese cities that have a population of over 500,000 people.
Think about the societal impact of that single statistic. 97% of mid to large cities.
It's almost all of them.
Basically, yeah. We were talking about weaving nearly every major economic hub, manufacturing center, and cultural capital into a single grid. Historically, a city's economic power was dictated by its port or its proximity to a major river.
Sure, waterways.
Right, but now it's dictated by its connection to this rail spine. It fundamentally alters labor markets. Like if you live in a smaller Tier 3 city, you suddenly have viable access to the megalopolises for business meetings or tourism without needing to book a flight or drive for 2 days.
Let's ground this in a real example because the source material brings this up constantly.
Yeah.
First-hand accounts from travelers taking the system always highlight the route between Beijing and Shanghai.
The classic route, yeah.
Right, that's our 1,300-kilometer journey. The trains cover that in roughly 4.5 hours, reaching top speeds of 350 kilometers per hour. But honestly, the speed almost isn't the most impressive part. It's the frequency. Trains on this route depart every 10 to 20 minutes.
Which is staggering. And when you factor in the friction of air travel, commuting to an airport outside the city center, arriving 2 hours early for security, waiting to board, flying, deplaning, and commuting back into the new city, that 4.5-hour train ride is actually faster end to end.
Oh, for sure.
But more importantly, the frequency changes the psychology of the traveler.
Okay, wait. I need to stop you there
Yeah.
because you just called it a subway system earlier.
Yeah.
But we were talking about traversing half a continent. How does a 1,300-kilometer journey feel anything like a local subway commute?
Well, it comes down to the friction of scheduling. A traditional long-distance railway involves planning days or weeks in advance. You are aiming for a single daily departure, maybe 2, if you're lucky.
Right, like an Amtrak cross-country or something.
Exactly. If you get stuck in traffic and miss that 8:00 a.m. train, your day is effectively ruined. You're just not going. But when trains leave every 10 to 20 minutes, you stop building your life around the train's schedule. The train accommodates your schedule.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if you miss one, you just grab a coffee and catch the next one. It completely removes the anxiety of intercity travel.
Okay, I follow the logic there, but I have a major contradiction to throw at you.
Okay, let's hear it.
If this is supposed to be a casual, frictionless subway experience, why do all the travel guides and first-hand accounts insist that you arrive at the station at least 40 minutes early?
Oh.
And on top of that, they emphasize that a passport is absolutely mandatory for foreign travelers. Like, you needed to book the ticket, pass through security, and get to the platform. That sounds exactly like the airport anxiety we just said we were avoiding.
It's a fair point. And it highlights a critical reality of the system. You just cannot operate a high-frequency network at this scale without incredibly rigid crowd control.
Makes sense.
Let's start with the passport requirement. The entire system is digitally integrated. There are no paper tickets to lose or stamp. Your identity document is the ticket.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when you book on the English-friendly apps like Trip.com or the official railway app 12306, you are linking your reservation directly to your passport number. When you arrive at the station, you simply scan your passport at the biometric turnstiles and the gates open.
So no frantic searching through your emails for a QR code while, a line of angry people forms behind you.
Precisely. It's seamless. But there are no workarounds either. If you leave your passport in your hotel room, you are not getting on that train, period. The digital firewall is absolute.
Which brings us to the physical firewall of the stations themselves.
Yes.
They are described universally as massive.
Yeah.
And you have to go through X-ray bag checks, ticket checks, and body scanners before you even reach the waiting area. You can't just stroll off the street and onto the platform 5 minutes before departure like you can at, say, a traditional commuter station in Europe.
You really can't. Think about it like an airlock on a spaceship.
Okay.
When you have a station processing tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of passengers a day, and you have trains holding over 1,000 people departing every 10 minutes, you cannot afford a free-for-all on the platform. It would be a catastrophic safety hazard.
Because everyone would be pushing to find their carriage while the train is literally trying to leave.
Exactly. So they use the waiting rooms as holding pens. That airport-level security funnels you into these massive, clean, highly organized zones with giant departure boards. You are held in the airlock, basically, until your specific train is ready.
And then they let everyone down at once.
Right. Only then do they open the gates and release your batch of passengers down to the platform. It prevents bottlenecking and ensures the train can arrive, load those 1,000 people, and depart with absolute, down-to-the-minute precision.
Okay, so the strict airport-style logistics are actually the prerequisite for the subway-style frequency. You can't have the convenience of a train every 10 minutes without the strict crowd control feeding people onto the platforms.
There are two sides of the same coin.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's follow that passenger down to the platform because this is where the physical reality of the machine comes into focus. The trains dominating these major routes are part of a generation called the Fuxing trains.
And the name is actually really important there. Fuxing translates to rejuvenation. It's a very deliberate branding choice that ties this infrastructure directly to the country's broader narrative of, rapid modernization and economic resurgence.
And visually, they definitely live up to the name. They are sleek, aerodynamic masterpieces. But once you step inside, you have to find your seat. And the comfort levels depends entirely on what class you booked.
Which is another way the system accommodates a massive variety of travelers, from students on a tight budget to executives doing prep work before a meeting.
The baseline is second class, which is the most common. It's laid out in a 3+2 configuration, 3 seats on one side of the aisle, 2 on the other. It gets compared to airplane economy a lot. But the consensus in the source material is that it has vastly more legroom.
A lot more, yeah.
You aren't crushing your knees against the seat in front of you. And then if you want a bit more breathing room, first class uses a 2+2 layout, and then business class is the premium option, featuring a very spacious 2+1 layout with seats that can recline completely flat.
But the key takeaway for a prospective traveler is that even second class is built for endurance. These aren't hard plastic subway benches. When you are moving people across 1,300 kilometers, passenger comfort isn't a luxury. It's a baseline requirement to keep the population actually willing to use the system.
They also include basic modern necessities, like there are power outlets tucked under the seats so you can charge your devices.
Right.
However, this leads to a fascinating technical quirk that travelers always point out. You might assume a hypermodern train would have flawless Wi-Fi. Some do have it, but the universally agreed upon pro tip is do not rely on it. Download your movies, podcasts, and shows before you board.
It's purely a matter of physics and bandwidth. Imagine moving at 350 kilometers per hour through rural agricultural areas, diving into tunnels, and carving through mountains.
Sounds tough for a signal.
Yeah, maintaining a cellular handshake between towers when you are traveling at roughly 1/3 the speed of sound is incredibly difficult. Now, multiply that challenge by 1,000 passengers, all trying to stream high-definition video at the exact same time. The network simply gets overwhelmed.
So just download your entertainment. Or honestly, just look out the window, because reading the accounts of people doing this for the first time, the view is a massive part of the appeal.
Oh, absolutely.
You are sitting in this climate-controlled, high-tech capsule, and out the glass, you see ancient rice paddies, towering mountain ranges, and winding rivers just flashing by.
It's basically a living museum of the country's geography. And that actually brings us back to that engineering marvel you mentioned earlier, the coin trick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I need you to explain this to me, because it sounds physically impossible. You have a massive metal tube blasting through the countryside at 350 kilometers per hour. I've been on old commuter rail lines going maybe 80 kilometers per hour, and the carriage rattles so hard you can barely sip a cup of coffee without wearing it.
Right, it's a mess.
Yet on the Fuxing trains, people routinely balance a coin on its edge on the windowsill, and it just sits there. It doesn't fall over. How is the cabin not shaking violently?
It's the result of eliminating every possible source of friction and vibration, both above and below the train.
Okay, how?
Let's start with the tracks. Traditional railways are built with physical gaps between the steel rails to account for thermal expansion, the metal swelling in the heat.
Right.
Those gaps are what cause the classic clickety-clack sound and the bumpy ride. High-speed rail, however, uses continuously welded rails.
Meaning there are no gaps.
None. The rails are welded together into a single, seamless, continuous ribbon of steel that stretches for hundreds of miles.
Wow.
They use advanced fastening systems to control the thermal expansion so the track doesn't buckle. That eliminates the vibration from below. Then you look at the aerodynamics of the train itself. The nose of the Fuxing is sculpted to slice through the atmosphere with absolute minimal resistance. The undercarriage is fully enclosed, and the gaps between the carriages are sealed to prevent wind turbulence from grabbing the train and shaking it from side to side.
So it's basically an airplane fuselage that happens to be glued to a perfectly smooth ribbon of steel.
That's exactly what it is. The engineering goal isn't just speed, it's stability at speed.
It sounds like an incredibly serene environment. But while the train itself is perfectly smooth, the human element inside the cabin is distinctly pragmatic. And there is one logistical hurdle that shatters that serenity if you aren't prepared your luggage.
Yeah, this is where treating it like an airport will get you into trouble.
Right. At an airport, you hand your massive 50-pound suitcase to someone at a desk, and you never see it again until baggage claim. But on the train, you are your own baggage handler.
Yeah.
There are luggage racks above the seats, just like overhead bins on a plane, and some larger racks at the ends of the carriages. But if you try to drag two massive, heavy steamer trunks through those vast stations, through the security scanners, onto the escalator, and down the narrow aisle of the train, you are going to be miserable.
Mobility is your greatest asset here. You have to pack light, because the system waits for no one.
Which perfectly transitions us to the unspoken cultural rhythms of this journey. We've covered the cold, hard engineering. Let's talk about the lived experience inside that cabin. The best place to start is the food.
A critical component of any long journey.
Naturally. Now, these trains do have dining cars, and attendants regularly push food and beverage carts down the aisles. But the veteran move, the thing almost every local does, is to bring their own food.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, instant noodles, fruit, and snacks purchased at the station before boarding.
This is a beautiful cultural distinction, really. In some Western countries, opening up a highly fragrant hot meal at your seat might earn you some annoyed looks from your neighbors.
Yeah, people tend to glare at you.
But on the Chinese high-speed rail, it is an accepted and cherished ritual. Every carriage has a hot water dispenser specifically for this purpose. The smell of instant noodles steeping is basically the olfactory soundtrack of long-distance travel in China. It turns this high-tech sterile tube into a very communal, lived-in space.
It kind of humanizes the whole machine.
It really does.
But there's another human element that is significantly more stressful, and that's timing your travel around national holidays.
Yeah.
You might think with trains leaving every 10 minutes, you could just show up anytime. But if you try to travel during Chinese New Year or a period known as Golden Week, you will be in for a rude awakening.
For context, Golden Week is a massive national holiday in the fall where virtually the entire country is given time off simultaneously.
Wow.
It drives a massive surge in domestic tourism, and Chinese New Year drives something even bigger, the largest annual human migration on the planet. Hundreds of millions of people are all trying to return to their ancestral hometowns within the same tight window of a few days.
So even a system with 50,000 kilometers of track and trains leaving every 10 minutes can completely buckle under that kind of demand.
Absolutely. Tickets for those specific dates go on sale, and they evaporate within minutes. The scale of the population is so vast that even this unprecedented infrastructure hits its absolute physical limit. If you do not book the minute those tickets are released, you will not be traveling.
A completely sold-out grid. It's staggering to visualize. But let's assume you got your ticket, you packed light, you enjoyed your instant noodles, and you spent the last 4 hours watching the countryside blur by while your coin perfectly balances on the windowsill.
Sounds perfect.
Your journey's coming to an end. And this is where first-time travelers experience severe whiplash.
The arrival rush.
Yes, the accounts describe this perfectly serene environment instantly transforming the second the train approaches the destination. Everyone immediately stands up, grabs their bags, crowds into the aisles, and the polite stillness completely vanishes. It turns into a chaotic race to the door. Why does everyone suddenly panic?
Well, it's not panic. It is pure pragmatic mathematics. You have to remember how the system maintains its flawless schedule. To keep trains running every 10 minutes, they don't linger at the stations.
Right.
If Shanghai is the final stop, everyone gets off and you have time. But if you are getting off at an intermediate stop, say a mid-sized city along the route, the train might only stop at that platform for literally 2 or 3 minutes.
Wait, 2 minutes? To unload and load passengers?
Yes. The doors open, people flood out, people flood in, the doors shut, and the train accelerates back up to 350 kilometers per hour. If you decide to remain comfortably in your seat until the train comes to a complete stop and then casually try to retrieve your bag from the overhead bin, the doors will close before you reach them.
Oh my God.
And suddenly you are on an express route to a different province hundreds of kilometers away.
Oh wow. So the hustle is entirely mandatory.
It is entirely mandatory. The passengers know the rules of the game. The machine provides the speed, but the humans must provide the efficiency to match it. You have to be standing by the airlock before it opens.
I love that. The high-tech, perfectly engineered silence of the continuously welded rails, instantly shattered by the chaotic, hyper-practical reality of human beings refusing to miss their stop.
It is the ultimate synthesis of man and machine.
And right in the middle of that frantic rush to the doors, there was one final piece of etiquette that travelers note. Despite the urgency, it is common practice and highly appreciated to quickly say thank you to the train attendants standing by the doors.
It's a nice grounding moment. It acknowledges that beneath the algorithms, the biometric spanners, and the aerodynamic metal, there is an army of human workers running themselves ragged to keep this 50,000-kilometer circulatory system flowing smoothly.
It's the perfect capstone to the journey. We have covered a truly massive amount of territory today. We started with the sheer geographical dominance of a system linking 97% of major cities. We unraveled the necessary contradiction of using strict airport-style security to manage the holding pens so that the platform itself can operate with subway-level frequency.
We examined the physical reality of the Fuxing trains too, from the spacious legroom to the ingenious elimination of vibration through continuously welded rails, proving that massive scale doesn't have to sacrifice microscopic precision.
And we dug into the realities of navigating the system as a human being, the absolute necessity of your digital passport, the joy of carriage-wide instant noodles, the peril of Golden Week, and the 2-minute survival sprint of the arrival rush.
If you take a step back and look at all of this together, it offers a masterclass in how society can tackle the friction of distance. It proves that with enough logistical rigidity and engineering prowess, you can take something as daunting as moving millions of people across a continent and turn it into a routine daily occurrence.
It makes a massive country feel incredibly small. And that brings me back to the thought we started with, replacing a stressful flight with a smooth 4-hour ground commute. I want to leave you with a question to ponder today. We've seen how this infrastructure connects 97% of urban populations. If high-speed rail can shrink a massive 1,300-kilometer journey into a comfortable half-day trip, with a train always waiting for you every 10 minutes, how long before this level of accessibility permanently changes how we define the concept of a hometown versus a workplace?
That is the profound consequence of all this engineering. When you strip away the friction of distance, geography stops being a barrier and simply becomes a measure of time.
When you can commute across provinces faster than some people can drive across a major city, the map just doesn't mean what it used to. Something to mull over as you go about your day. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.